All right, coming up this hour, we'll be talking and going to talk to Andrew Sims. Now, you don't know Andrew if you don't live in Dunedin, but he is a very very successful businessman who is bidding to become the mayor of the Dunedin City Council. And if that was all it was about, I wouldn't be talking to him, and we wouldn't be introducing this issue. But the perils of teams, I think there's a general acceptance now that if you get elected, and the best example of all of that was poor old Hubbard in Auckland, but there'll be a lot of people who get elected to be mayors sitting around a council table having promised an awful lot of stuff for the local body elections. And one of the things that they will be doing the day after the election is going, oh my God, I've promised all this stuff. I've been out there as the mayoral candidate, whether I'm Fran Wild in South Wairarapa or Andrew Sims in Dunedin. I'm sitting around the table, and suddenly I realise that the table is opposed to my entire agenda. And so for the next 3 years, you look a bit of a dick, to be honest with you, because you promised all this stuff and you can't deliver. That's the first part. Two, the frustration would be off the level. What am I doing here? Continually being outvoted on the agenda that you got elected on. And then three, you gain public opprobrium because you said you were going to do all this and you're not doing it. So there's a lot of one-term mayors around on the basis that they got elected to do something, but they didn't have the people sitting around the rest of the table to do so. And one of the things about councils, and it's poorly understood in this country, and local bodies in particular, is that you can elect any mayor you like, and they can promise anything you like, but they are literally one vote around the table. And unless they are with a group of like-minded folk sitting around the council table with them, they've got as much influence as the least elected councillor, who's often voted on the fact their name recognition, you once bought a pie from their dairy, that sort of stuff. So it all gets a bit silly, really. So Andrew Sims, who, as I said, is a successful businessman, I think he's in the car trade, we'll talk to him in just a second, has decided that he is going to stand for the Dunedin mayoralty. He's got a good chance. He's got a well-funded campaign. And normally you would think business experience and acumen, well-funded campaign, and he's decided also, he's woken up to that lesson that, God, I need other people around the table with me. He's standing for a team. But it has been beset in recent days and weeks, and it's sort of the perils of team politics. Listen, the Labour Party, select candidates, they're standing for this right throughout New Zealand. The Green Party, well, they've got candidates standing, funded, etc. The ACT Party, done exactly the same. Is there a position for team politics in New Zealand, and can it be effective at getting the end result? The candidate for the mayoral candidate, and probably the leading mayoral challenger, I'd have to say, probably, for the Dunedin mayoralty, Andrew Sims, joins us now. Andrew, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you very much for the invitation. And it was a great summary that you've just given. I was tempted to hang up and withdraw, but I'll carry on.
Well, yeah. Well, listen. You said so. You saw the problem. You got together with a group of like-minded folk in Dunedin, and you said, right, we're going to put a team together. You said in the newspaper, I think it was yesterday, that you might have in actual fact got a bit too broad and a bit too diverse in terms of selecting your team, because I think since you originally had your team, one, two, three have gone. What was the problem? Was it too broad, too diverse? Did you get the wrong personalities? What was the problem?
It's a great question, Michael. I think that in hindsight, the team probably got a bit too big. So we started with 10. We've currently got 7. And we did, I made a deliberate choice to actually look for a broad range of candidates. So people expected my team, people knew I was doing this, and they expected my team to turn up with a whole lot of 60-year-old white business people that thought they knew what was best for the city, and away we go. And I think they were quite surprised when they saw that we actually had some of those, but also that we had a range of people standing on the ticket with us. And that was quite deliberate. It was quite deliberate to say, here are a good team of Dunedin people who in my view, would make far better councillors than the ones we've got at the moment. And we are giving you that choice. You don't have to support all of them. You don't have to support the team approach. But here are some good people that might look like you and might represent what you want for Dunedin. And here is the opportunity to vote for those. In hindsight, I think we started with too many. And also what I hadn't necessarily anticipated was that broad range of outlooks and backgrounds would create, some management challenges in keeping everybody on the same page. We had, which I think is a lofty goal. We had with the lofty goal of getting the mayoralty and getting 2 or 3 candidates on. I'm absolutely certain we can still achieve that goal with the 7 we've got. And I had always anticipated that some people, for whatever reason, would shake out. I hadn't necessarily expected them to drop out and run as independents. I thought that, as Jules found last time, some people just thought, no, this is not for me, or I can't handle the heat, or whatever it is, and drop out along the way. So I guess it's fair to say I'm a little bit disappointed about people pulling out.
If people are going to drop out, they'd drop out before nomination day, wouldn't they? I mean, you sit around, you've got your team together. You've presumably, I'll come to that in a second, thought about your policy that you're going to be enacting. Wouldn't they drop out? I mean, it's extraordinary that they drop out after they've been nominated, as in this particular case, a future Dunedin candidate.
It is. And the election papers are printed, and the candidate handbooks are printed, and we've invested a fair bit of money in getting the whole team to where they are now. So, you would think so. Against that, I think, and in fairness to the 2 that have dropped out, probably the team dynamics or don't become apparent until you get into it. And I've got to say, I think I hadn't anticipated perhaps the degree of internal competition. And now that the candidate evenings have started and people have possibly started to realise that Future Dunedin have got some very strong candidates, but I think equally as important, there are some other really good people putting themselves forward this year. There is a much better group, a much better quality group of candidates for people of Dunedin to choose for their council this year than there was last in 2022. And I say that absolutely sincerely, not just because I'm on the list, but, there are a number of some of them. There are a number of very good candidates that have put themselves forward this time. And I think we're going to get a much better council in 2025, and
I'll just explain to the rest of the country on this one. The Dunedin City Council must be almost unique this coming elections on the basis of how many people are standing. In most other councils, and we've just talked to the Mayor of South Wairarapa, the number of people are standing you can name on one hand, and it's sort of like 7-5 or 6-4, that sort of stuff. But in here, you've got 54 council candidates. 54 for what, 14 or 15 positions. That's extraordinary.
It is, and I was, we were asked that question by the Otago Daily Times probably 10 days ago, and I was pleased to see another senior councillor in the town attribute that to Future Dunedin going early with their campaign and talking about the issues and creating a lot of publicity and creating a lot of conversation around the big issues. As much as that, I think it also demonstrates that that people are not happy. So the community are not happy with the performance of this council, and the winds of change are blowing through Dunedin, and all of local government, to be fair. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in New Zealand who is, or any council in New Zealand that's sort of on the top of a pedestal somewhere saying, hey, look at us. But 54, you've also got another for 14 vacancies, I see. And just to explain also to the rest of New Zealand, you've got STV in Dunedin, which this ridiculous system where you've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4 in order of preference, presumably from 1 to 14, if you wanted to exercise all those choices. What a boondoggle, mate, in terms of trying to get a vote. I think, look, I quite like the STV system, Michael. And if you look at the 2022 election in Dunedin, of the 15 councillors that got on, 13 of them would have got on under first past the post. So the last two were altered by lower preference votes, but by and large, the system is designed to get a broadly representative council. The problem with the system, there's two fundamental problems with the system. The first one is that people don't understand it. So they think, okay,
well, that's the big one. Yeah.
That is the big one. And there's a lot of misinformation put out by people trying to sort of advantage themselves by putting out misinformation about how people should vote. But the second thing is it conveys an enormous advantage to sitting councillors because of the name recognition. So people get to that point where they probably really like Michael Law, so I'm going to put him one, and I quite like Hillary Galbert, so I'll put her at two. Beyond that, I've heard of him. He must be all right. I've heard of him, so they put them at three. Now, they could actually then be voting for somebody that they probably really didn't want and assisting them to get elected if they take that approach.
But that's true of first past the post too, isn't it? Seriously.
Well,
I mean, I mean, name recognition is just the name of the beast at local government because it's such a stupid bloody electoral system. So I mean, Andrew, the problem is that it doesn't matter. First past the post, STV. I think that's the mantra.
Well, yes, it is, but I think the advantage is amplified under STV because people can, they might only like three people, but they feel compelled to rank
to go to
10
14.
or 14 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and then you're just completely ranking on whether you've actually heard that person or not. Now, you might have heard them because they're in the paper all the time for being a nuisance. But it's much harder. Under STV, it's much harder for good people to get elected onto the council than it is for bad people to get elected off. And that's, that is the reason that we are compelled to run a significant campaign to try and overcome that. And those councillors, and there are some excellent people that are not running a campaign for one reason or another, and that's really difficult and it's frustrating to see because in many cases, they would make much better councillors than what we've got at the moment.
You haven't had any political experience yourself. Yes, you have. You've been on the community board, I think, of one of the Dunedin community boards. I think it's is it the one in Mosgiel or Strathtyre or something like that?
I'm chair of the Mosgiel-Tyre community board.
Okay, so you've got that political experience coming in, but I'm interested where you'd place yourself on the political spectrum, or do you eschew that? Because if I look, Dunedin is quite a factional place in terms of its politics, perhaps more so than anywhere else except possibly Wellington or Christchurch. Yeah, those would be the big three. So you're identified as sort of left, middle, right. Where do you put yourself, Andrew, and your team?